school slash post-school group, and I started realizing like these kids don't want a program. These kids want to know that Jesus is real. Kind of how we started this whole thing is like making Jesus real. And I went up to the pastor, and we were trying to figure out. Just want to read John. I'll read verse by verse, and we can never keep the kids in I just want to read. I want to play games with the kids. And they're middle schoolers. We'll play games and stuff. I want to read the Bible to them, and any questions that they have. If I don't know the answer, I'll come to you. You answer the questions that I can't quite figure out on my own. And then the next week, that's how I'll start. By answering the questions that the kids had the last week. What he said to me? Give a program. So when we left that church and started going to Downey's Calvary Chapel in 2009, we had just gotten back from Soul Fest. And we weren't sure where we were going to go. We had actually gone to a couple of churches before going away for those 3 or 4 days. And then when we came back, we were like, well, we got invited by a family member to go, I don't know. We got invited to go to Downey's Calvary Chapel. And my daughter, unbeknownst to me, was already going. She'd been going with my wife's aunt. And so we decided to go, and because we were still kind of what we call church shopping, you really see my ear quotes. And so we went to Downey's Calvary Chapel the first time on a Sunday. They had John Sear was speaking at the time, so we kind of got to know the word hierarchy, but we got to learn like who was in the leadership, and so John was speaking that day. It was really awesome. Weird connection there with John Sear and I. His sister and I worked together at Denny's. She was a server and I was. So anyway, and so he spoke that one time. So I was like, we know who the assistant pastor is at least, or we know something with the leadership. As well as gone, something medically, I think. Imagine that. And then the week after that, we decided to go again. So now this is 2 weeks in the Calvary Chapel. And they had a missionary from China, Chamberlain. Wow, pulled that out of there. And so that was kind of cool. The first week we learned about the leadership, and then the second week we learned that, they're fully involved in ministry. This is cool. And then we went one more time, and that's when we met Will. And by that point, we've been going for 3 weeks. And after that Sunday, we drove up to our because I had to use the bathrooms, locked doors, like fire security, sound out. And so it's like a place to go. They do very comfortable. We've gone to a couple other churches, and the kids were not happy. Lost the lead. It's kind of how we ended up in home with this house. But so anyway, that's a whole other story altogether. We'll get there too, right? So, but rabbit trail. But so when I was sitting down talking to Will one day, and I said the only thing I ever wanted to do, because when we came to Calvary Chapel and realized that Calvary Chapel reads verse by verse, that was when the epitome hit me in the face. Like, that's what I wanted to do with these kids. I just wanted to read the word to these kids so that at least they were getting something real instead of a program that was just going to regurgitate the same message every single year. Right. That's all it does. It just does the same junk over. And Will said, yeah, no, you're going to find a lot of opposition with a thing like that. And I said, I certainly did. And so he said, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he goes, because a lot of people when they come to Calvary Chapel like that, and they need to find a place like this. Any other? For me, I was going to talk about going to church. I think that was church. Yeah. That's as far as I was going to go. I wasn't going to go to churchianity or Christianese. And I hate to say that. I don't want. I have no ill on my parents. I think they did certainly weren't always living it at home. I'm not saying we weren't. I mean, we had Bible study. I do remember. I do think that there was a place that they also wanted people to think that things were good, right? Yeah, both at the church, we in Union and in Appleton. And then there was inner turmoil.
Be advised, hostile sentry gun spotted.
As well. So it's hard when my first memories are my parents splitting up and dad being gone for a while. I don't remember how long.
UAV online.
Really young, but I just remember dad was gone. And then my mom dated some people and she'd bring them by the house to introduce us and it was like new guys and it was weird. And then she came in the last new guy and he stayed forever. And they were still married when I got married. But I guess when I started going to church, I was doing like the Dunkin' Donuts, I also worked for Don's Wholesale, just like Aaron did. I worked different jobs in that. Warehouse, and I did some driving, but that wasn't my gig. I'm not designing. But then I got a job working for ACX, which is the radio station. And I did that for 3 years, and so I work in the audio room. I produced audio, all the radio shows that you've heard on that station. I produced them. I put the taggers on, which is the music and the introductions and all that sort of thing. I did the fronts and the backs, and I cut out all the coughs and the hiccups and the long pauses to make it flow. And I did a lot of audio production, and I had a really fancy computer program that did it all, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I did like the television station I was attached. And they would come in and I would record people for documentaries and local, commercials for like the general store, that sort of thing. I had a lot of fun, but I learned a lot of Bible in those 3 years. I learned a lot of Bible, and I was on staff at the church. Aaron was too, doing other things. But that was a lot of fun. Didn't pay well, so I had to move on because we were buying a house and having a family, and it was just time to move along. And I'm one of those people who, when I get a job, I stay in it for as long as I possibly can. The job I got was Kids Peace New England, which is in Ellsworth, and I work with the kids that nobody knows what to do with anymore. I had a lot of fun. I got hurt a lot. I eventually sustained an injury that made me have to leave, and then I worked at the lab. That's what I met you.
Oh, well, my work history is awful. So the longest job I held before the lab was Denny's. I did that for 3.5 years, and then I was at the lab 18 years, because before that, jobs never lasted 6 months. I mean, I was 19, 18, 19, 20, and I didn't start working at Denny's until 2000. So I would have been 20 years. That was my same year that Sherry was. So I started in April, and Sherry was born in May. So that was in 2000. So yeah, 3.5 years at Denny's. That was my longest job. And then I went to the lab, and I did it. I wasn't. All the jobs I had to do, CNC. I did work at the Cohen's in Ellsworth. They fired me, but that's neither here nor there. Stupid story, and I came out on top on that one. So I will add some other things like never been invited. BC, right? Never been invited to a kids had parties in high school like every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. No joke. Never once. Like I'd come to school on Monday morning, and these people would be like out of their minds. I mean, they're walking in slow. The lights are bothering their eyes, and I'm like, "What happened?" Like, "Oh man, we had a great party." I'm like, "Yeah, what'd you do?" "I don't remember." And I think back on that, like you had a party that was really great, but you don't remember it. Okay, I had a party too. I went to work, so I never get invited to a party. I smoked marijuana 4 times between 2000, 2001 for 4 times. That's 4 individual times. I played video games, and then I fell asleep, and I ate a lot, and I had to stop because I gained a lot of weight. And I think I've only ever been drunk twice. And the first time was when I was like 5, because I stole my grandfather's beer. I've got a pretty boring backside of it. I mean, I hope people have as boring a testimony when it comes to substance abuse, because I have seen the other side of substance abuse. You've lived the other side. I don't mean to say it that way, but you lived the other side of that substance abuse. I have seen firsthand what substance abuse is. I've lost too many friends to it. I'm currently dealing with a family member that is hard to talk to because of the substance abuse over the years. Part of me, like when I was first not getting into it, many of my friends are going to invite me to one of these parties so I can go and have fun that I can't remember that we did. I look at that now, I look back and go, oh, good Lord, I'm away from that for some purpose. And what is that? I mean, why do some people go through it? Some people don't? On the other hand, I had a small mouth, and that took forever to break. That was probably, I remember actually I remember praying one time, like, man, why couldn't I have kept that smoking problem and maybe not had the swearing problem? You know, I smoked cigarettes for 6 years. Age of 12. You know, I was smoking packs a day when I was 17. I was pretty crazy. But anyway,
once you were legal.
Once I was legal, I was.
Yeah. I quit drinking when I was like, it's not even.
It's not even fun anymore.
It's not even fun anymore.
So
I have to buy my own now.
You know, I don't know why I wanted to go down that rabbit trail. But I want people to know that just because someone is clean cut in another's place. So if you're an alcoholic. Okay, I hate using that word because alcohol comes from age. If you are a boozer, okay, you're a drunk. If you're a drunk, someone who's never had an alcohol problem, that doesn't mean that there's something else going on. Okay? Addiction is addiction. I talked to a guy about this yesterday. He's cancer. He had throat cancer, which actually went into his larynx, and it did all this other stuff, and part of it went into his chest, and then it went into his teeth. He had a lot of his teeth removed because cancer doesn't have a discrimination, right? Neither does addiction. And when you think of addiction, the first thing that pops into our heads is drugs and alcohol. Those are the ones that you can't hide that, right? You cannot hide if you're an alcoholic or a drug user. You cannot hide that because people are going to look at you and go, well, we know that what's
almost there.
But,
makes sense.
But there are other ones you can hide. Like I was a pirate, so I could hide that by just swearing sometimes, or using the little ones that people didn't care so much about, or being such an angry person. I was horribly angry all the time. So you can kind of hide that if you.
I was, and I still, in all honesty, I struggle with anger every single day. I pray about it a lot. You know, I don't want to be that person that's just like immediately snaps because that's very sinful. Obviously, that we're not supposed to be angry.
All the time. 24 hours a day.
The Bible says, "Be angry, but don't sin." Right.
Right.
But I think that there's a difference between like we were talking about habits, right?
Right.
You can create a habit for yourself where you just like to, it's like stuff that you put into your life. Like if you watch a constant diet of the nightly news, I'm sorry, you're an angry person. There's no way that you can't be, because there's a sense of injustice, right? Everyone develops it. That's why we have protesters in the middle of because they're incensed. They feel like there's an injustice going on that needs to be dealt with.
They're being fed by that.
And honestly, like since I stopped watching the news, and I generally have stopped listening to all the talk radio.
Yep.
And I just made a decision to deal with what's going on with the guy's name first. Like what's going on in my community, because I can't take on the whole world's problems. Like I can't solve that. Like, there's too many things. There's too many variables, and I'm me. Like I'm nobody. Who cares that I don't agree with you on this topic? Who cares? Exactly. It just doesn't do any good to be angry. But that's kind of where almost one of my first reactions, and then I have to say, no, I'm not gonna get sucked into that. That's not what God wants me to be like.
I could also name some other quite nasty habits and addictions. I was listening to a pastor not that long ago. He's been a pastor for a long time now. I think it's Pastor Zach down Machias
Valley.
No, sorry, Zach down in Miami, Calvary Chapel, Miami. He said when he hears the word pornography, he can't not but picture the very first one he saw. It just pops in there. There it is.
Yeah.
Well, you've just taken me back to when I was 12 years old. The Son of Sam murderer, right? David Berkowitz, Christian, has his own Bible study in prison right now. Doesn't ever want to get out of prison. Doesn't believe he deserves to get out of prison for the things that he's done. He has hearings, but he's always hopeful that he will be released. And there's people that protest. He shouldn't be released. And he's like, I'm not asking to be. Anyway, but he said the same thing. If someone says that word, he can remember the very first image he ever saw. And he said it's the one thing that he's just like, I hate it.
We've taken the lead.
And he said, and you can hide it.
Yep.
It's not out there for everybody to see, And so we do have those hidden addictions. So just because something is a visible addiction, and we've had those, we've had the visible ones, the drinking and the smoking and the drugs, and maybe even girls or boys, men and women, if you've had multiple boyfriends and girlfriends and whatnot, sex is a huge addiction. But when it comes to other kinds that you can hide away, put in the closet somewhere nobody knows, it still eats away at your being. And I think also hiding those things, I think that's where a lot of my anger comes from. I really do. I think a lot of my anger is because I always have the thought, well, we tell you, you need to love you more, right? Which we, as Christians, we know that that's 100%. We love ourselves way too much. I mean, I wake up in the morning thinking, I love me. I feed my stomach because I love me. I turn on 80s music because I love me. Stuff like that. What is it? Joy. Jesus.
Joy. Enemies counter UAV.
I'd love to put that in you way down.
Right.
Etc. Contact with enemy. I'm hoping that people will. I know I've got a beard.
Bring it up, squad.
I've got earrings, tattoos.
We lost the lead.
But I hope people will see me. Invite them out to eat. Oh gosh, want to invite us out to eat? There's 6 of us.
So at some point we'll have to talk about the story that got you guys out here. At some,
I blame Nate. That was
UAV
totally
spotted.
the Holy Spirit. We can do this. So yeah, let's do that. So and look, guys, we're gonna continue to get over the weeks, and I think this is gonna be. This is just you getting a chance to know me. So all right, I was living with my 4 children in a town called Surge, which is on the other side of Ellsworth. And I sent a mass text saying, guys, I think I said something along those lines. So I think the Lord is moving us somewhere.
UAV spotted.
I don't know where that is. Just pray for us. And most of the guys that I sent that message out to sent back message of that's all we mentioned. Like, I know some people are like, oh, weird stories. I never asked for something really specific. It's just let the Lord reveal to us what this direction is. We thought we're moving out of the state of Maine. We had a 5-year. We just didn't know where we were going to state of Maine. So Nate calls me within 20 minutes, I think, of that text. And we talked on the phone for like an hour. It was a long time because I think Amanda came home and she was out there on the talk, and you didn't even get to anything at all. You were just like, hey, I have to call you because when you text me, you don't text me often, and so when you do text me, I figure, hey, this is probably a good time to give him a call. And you were like, yeah, and I'll pray for you, and I'll pray for direction for you and your family. I think you even prayed for me over the phone. And then it was just a normal dude-to-dude phone call, like, hey, let's catch up, and let's talk about some stuff, what's going on. We hang up. And then 20 minutes later, Nate sends a text. Hey, could you come up to Machias and have lunch with me? Because we have a program up here and nobody to run it. And he said it was grief share. So we had lost a daughter to brain cancer. We had three miscarriages. Had a son die of SID. And it's a program Amanda's always wanted to run. So Amanda's my wife. And Daniel's my son. He's on the same table with us right here. He's doing you're waving. That's good job. He can see you. We're leaving that in too. And I got 3 little boys. Amanda's right there, and she's hearing the conversation that we're having because we were getting toward the end of it. And then 20 minutes later, like I said, you tell and I said, hey, we're going to go eat with Nate and his family not moving because we didn't want to move up in the So, anyway, we come up to have lunch. We decided to come to church. We're going to pull up if we might as well go to church. We got up really stupid early in the morning. Went to Machias Christian Fellowship. Had a really great time there. And I run into Aaron because I've known Aaron for a little while, not as long as I've known you, but I've known Aaron for a little while. Not like known him, but, had conversation with him a couple of times. And I said, yeah, I'm going over to Nate's house to have lunch. And I didn't say anything. I didn't expel what we were talking about because I didn't know what he knew. And he goes, yeah, I'll be right over in about like a half an hour after you get there. And I'm like, and as he walked away, I was like, I didn't know that Aaron was also coming because you didn't say that. You just sit right. You lied to me. No, I'm kidding. So
it was a setup.
It was a setup. So we go to Nate's house. There's ducks. The kids are feeding ducks, and they have three cats and that dog, and a turtle. Yep. And about 20 minutes later, Aaron shows up. We're eating hot dogs and hanging out and chicken. I think we're doing chicken, and we're all just sitting down having a good time. Khalifa, for anybody that knows, she's 6, and she's just running from one side of your house to the other side of your house. And Aaron was sitting on the couch next to you in such a way that the body language said, would someone please grab that kid and get her the heck out of this house? That was the body language. And then he did that thing, and I went, oh man, we're never getting invited here ever again. And I looked at Aaron and I said, what's so funny? He goes, that kid has not stopped running back and forth since I've been here. She is awesome. And I was like, what? He goes, oh man. He goes, that's fantastic, man. He's just still running. And the turtle was following her. And you're like, my turtle's never done that before, or whatever. It's so funny. Anywho, so we got talking because Aaron broke the ice by saying, so what are we doing here? And so that's when we brought up the grief share program, and he was like, I'm with it. So we're like, oh crud. So he's totally okay with us running this program. So because we didn't even say yes. And so then Amanda, my wife, who is adamant that she was not moving anywhere else in Maine, like we didn't want to move anywhere in Maine, let alone Machias. She goes, well, it's a program I've always wanted to run, so we just every single week. So I'm like, well, if we're going to come up here, we got to come up every week and be a face in the church. People need to see who we are. So I said, well, if we're coming up every single week, we might as well just try to find a house up here. And that's when Aaron's like, oh, I'm with it. Yeah, this is good. I'm like, oh, great. And so now he's really gone out. And for anybody that knows Aaron, that's how he's just, let's do this thing, And so we were trying to find a house, and every house we moved in, except for the one that we're this was the only house that stayed on the market, and it happened to be Jonesport. And
guess what? Machias.
And so Amanda, after we fully got moved in, after you were here helping us get all the stuff out of that truck and into this garage, she goes, well, we didn't move to Machias. And I was like, ha ha ha. So I had already told Aaron before we moved up that wherever we ended up, we were going to do a home Bible study. And he was like, oh, you have no idea. We just really need Bible studies because that is where it's at. Like, church is great, but we need small groups. And then when I told him, he was even more excited. He's like, you have no idea how much we've been wanting to get in there, but he said, you can't go to Jonesport unless you live there. I said, well, I'm new there. He goes, it doesn't matter, you live there. So yeah, everything is falling into, it was funny because we will say things really stupid like that. We say, oh, things are just falling apart. No, they really aren't. It may seem like it in the moment because it's not your plan, because it doesn't look like there's enough land. It doesn't look like there's enough wood. It doesn't look like there's enough space. It doesn't look like there's enough gas. It look like there's enough food. It can look like it's falling apart, but if you just for a moment, and that's what we did for a moment. We said, "All right, we're letting go. I'm letting go of everything. I'm letting it go. I am literally dropping the ball. I'm going to do the work of getting the truck filled up. I'm going to do the work of preparing for it. I'm going to do the physical thing, but everything else, I'm going to let go." And we did that. And you said you wish that your move was as yeah, because we did this move.
This is like a
2.5 days.
move.
It really was. And we've been packing for 3 months to move out of that map, but we literally got moved in. And we're still moving in. But for the most part,
I found that,
it hasn't been 3 months
an
yet.
actual physical location only takes a day, but the actual moving into the house takes about a year.
It has been 3 months. Today is 3 months. It so happens that we're starting this podcast 3 months after we moved in.
Something we've been, wanting to do since before you moved here.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it for a while. We did a practice run.
Yep. Yeah, I think back in.
There's still snow on the ground.
I think this is snow on the ground or something.
Yeah.
We were just having some fun with it.
Yep.
We didn't do anything serious.
No, but yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really hoping that, I'm hoping that all the home fellowships will listen and contribute, because that's kind of what this is for. We want this to be something that is for the church. This is a church ministry kind of thing, and let's generate some conversation about the Bible, about why we do this.
Right. And how can we? Because I asked Aaron the same question I asked you just last Sunday. I asked what does church look like? And we say that, right? We say church, and we use it for the wrong context, because the church is not the building. We are the church. But how? So I was talking to Aaron yesterday, and I brought things up. I said, I know missionaries from all over the place where they literally have to do church on their own. And they have church services sometimes 6 hours, 3 to 6 hours, somewhere in, because they just know they need to be in the Word. And this could be the last time that they hear the Word, because they could come out of that church and get killed. So it's like, we're not leaving here until you read the entire Bible today, or what, I don't know, but they're just so engulfed in this is the most important thing. So what I'm really hoping is throughout our communities, in our fellowship, in Jonesport, in Jonesboro, and Whiting, and Whitneyville, or wherever. I mean, there's a lot of surrounding areas here. Washington County's huge. And I know there's probably all over the place. But if we knew that, yes, that today, we already had church service there. This is Sunday the 22nd. That's when this is getting put out. So you may not hear this in person stuff, but I don't know when we're going to get this up there, because we have to do some editing. How different would church look? But how different would fellowship, worship, and your hunger for the Word of God be if you knew 6/22/25 is the last free, open time of worship you could ever have? Right. So next Sunday we are literally we're not having church anywhere. We're digging a bunker, and we're having church underground, and we're not telling anybody except for the people that are in the church. We've told all the leadership, and all the leadership's reached out to all the guys, and we're gonna go out somewhere and dig a hole and have church underground. How serious are we? So is that story about the gunmen?
Enemy.
These gunmen walked in, they were soldiers, and it was this bunker, this old temple, and they cocked their guns, right? And they said, if you're a Christian, you can stay. If you're not a Christian, the door is right here. And half the church left, and the pastor was still there. The worship team was still there, and half the church was still in this bunker sitting. And the pastor was like, well, I guess it's the last time. And they put their guns on the floor and said, nope, I just wanted to get out the papers. And they sat down to listen to the pastor talk.
Wow, yeah. Well, that's the way it's going to be, right?
Right.
That's the way it's going to be. We don't even know a person.
Aaron talked about that this morning, right? He talked about how we have it very, very easy. We have freedom of religion. We can get in a car and drive. How many churches are between here and Ellsworth? pick one, or between, how many churches are there between here and Machias? Actually, I probably should say, because there's a ton of them, so you have your hand picked, and there are more places like that anywhere else. Semi-free countries, and probably find churches too, like Canada, England or something like that. But for the most part, there's other countries they do not allow any kind of altering religion, right? So I mean, but how different? So can we, in Lubbock, Texas, they have can we love God, love people, and live radically? Which I've kind of changed to, can we love Jesus, and we serve people, and can we grow our communities, right? Because that's where it's going to start. It has to start with Jesus, and Jesus is people, and the people have to be. You can't, like you said, you can't be everywhere. You can't worry about the whole state of Maine. You're worried about Messiah. So can we love people enough instead of saying, "Oh, so-and-so is on the side of the track"? I get that. I've grown up on the wrong side of the track my entire life.
Right.
I grew up in Rockland. That was the wrong side of the track. I grew up in Appleton. That was the wrong side of the track. And it was just in the middle of nowhere.
Well, even
Surrey's the wrong side. If you go to the Ellsworth High School from Surrey, oh, you came from Surrey.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, but if I went to Blue Hill, they say the same thing. So Surrey's the wrong side of the track. So I've always been on the wrong side anyway. So moving here is perfect, but people are people. They do where you go.
And it's funny because I've been to a lot of churches. That's definitely that goes without saying. I've been to a lot of churches. Every church that Aaron went to, I was there too. Right? I'm the oldest brother, by the way. For those of you who don't know, I'm the oldest. Not that means anything. Any kind of comedy or sarcasm he has, he got it from me. Anyway, I don't know where was I going with all the church stuff.
You've been to a bunch of churches and you go to all the same churches.
Yeah.
So you've been all over.
Been all over.
Different denominations.
So, I remember what I was going to say. Machias Christian Fellowship, obviously, we're related to Aaron, so every once in a while we'd pack up the van and we'd come and visit, my brother Aaron's church and see what they got going on. We would do, we'd have a bunch of lobster and stuff, and that was kind of the hook to get us out here. Or we would, when they first started, they used to do, I think once a month or even after church every single time, I don't remember, but we would do like a fellowship lunch, like after the service. Lay out the tables and everyone would eat. It was a lot of fun, and there wasn't that many people, so it was a good way to get used to fellowship. And every single time we came here, we loved it. We tried other Calvary